This woman once lived a life of luxury, admired as the perfect noble lady of the empire. Her name is Edele Lancaster, the Duchess of the powerful Lancaster family. Since childhood, she was taught that elegance, grace, and obedience were the essence of a noblewoman. She fulfilled every expectation, marrying Duke Lancaster and maintaining her dignity as his devoted wife. But one day, her flawless world collapsed. Her husband, blinded by ambition, led a rebellion against the empire. His forces were crushed, his name erased, and the House of Lancaster fell into ruin. Edele, the once glorious duchess, was branded the wife of a traitor. The people who once bowed before her now spat her name with disgust. One night, one kingdom launched an attack on another. Inside her room, the noble duchess sat alone, praying softly, "Please, take me into your arms without too much pain. Allow me not to waver before pain and continue to have faith in God's plans and endure." But the soldiers were shouting, "The gate is open. Arrest the traitors." Edele said, "Pain is fleeting, but the fruit of patience will be sweet." A commander rushed in as one soldier shouted, "This is the only room remaining. Break down the door." The soldiers broke the door and saw a beautiful lady sitting on a chair before them. They laughed. One of them said, "Haha, my. So the rumors were true. She really is a beauty. So even in the midst of all this mess, you're still a duchess, is that it?" A commander stepped forward, saying, "Duchess Edele Lancaster." Edele asked in disbelief, "Are you going to execute me here?" He pulled out his sword and held it to Edele's neck, saying, "No, by the order of the emperor, I will take you alive as a prisoner." When did it all go wrong? Lady Edele thought to herself, "Accepting my share of accountability in this old chair, I pondered the honor and pride of a noble. I foolishly endured through everything for such silly things, but I can't even die as I wish. The perfect lady, Edele Lancaster. She hasn't been the Duchess of Lancaster for too long." 3 years ago. At a banquet, someone whispered, "Look over there. It's Edele Canyon." Another replied, "I heard she's engaged to Duke Lancaster. Even if the Lancasters are one of the 4 most prominent families, it's still distasteful. To marry such an old duke." Precisely. This year, the duke turned. The other lady interrupted, "Hush, someone might hear you. More importantly, just look at how steadfast she is. My goodness, does this not bother her in the least? I don't know what she's thinking." Count Canyon's only daughter, Edele Canyon. There were 4 extraordinarily powerful families in the empire. Edele, raised and groomed to be married off to one of these families, finally fulfilled her purpose. And so, she lived a year and 8 months as the old duke's wife. Who could have guessed that this perfect lady was nothing more than a means to bring the 2 families together, and due to the duke's treasonous plan to declare independence from the empire, she would become the wife of a traitor? The emperor chuckled. Finally, the greatest spoils of this war, Duke Lancaster's second wife, Edele Lancaster. Edele thought, "All my life, I was born and raised for a single purpose. I collapsed where I was standing because I was too afraid to run. I couldn't bear the thought of facing my death on the floor, so I dragged an old chair over to sit, all because of my feudal honor. It may be all I have left, but still, I can't crumble to the very end." A man cackled, "Your Majesty, give the treacherous criminal to me." Another shouted, "No. I probably took more enemy lives than him. Sir, take pity on this old widower." A lady said, "Why don't we decide who gets the prisoner with a duel?" Someone muttered, "I guess no one here has any dignity left." Nobles whispered, "But it's understandable. Edele Lancaster was praised as the perfect lady of nobility. Well, she's nothing more than a slave now. All the more reason not to hold back." Emperor Demarcus Tuberine chuckled, saying, My. I almost forgot about the greatest contributor in suppressing the rebellion when he's standing right here. Isn't that right? Tell me, Laslo, are you not in need of a woman? If you would like, I will give the greatest spoils of war to you." A noble whispered, "She got married to the wrong man and now she's ruined." And that commoner, he's thriving, isn't he? He's been made a count, and now this. Why does His Majesty want to endow him of all people with the greatest spoils of war? Edele thought, from what I recall, he used to be a mercenary. Then again, what does that have anything to do with me now? At this point, he's no different to me than any other knight. However, the man who brought me here, Laslo Krissus, the master of the Empire's largest mercenary guild, Calliope, and the man who was made count at the young age of 27 because of his military achievements. To the traditional nobles, he is by far the biggest threat among the nouveau riche noblemen on the emperor's side. However, from what I heard, the nobles who treat mercenaries like delinquents look down on him and treat him like a commoner. Laslo said, I'm not sure. My maids are short-handed, though. The emperor laughed, ha. Ha ha. Are you saying you want to use the woman who was once a duchess as a maid? He replied, I don't have any other use for her. The emperor smirked. Good, very good. I will endow Edele Lancaster to Count Laslo Krissus, who is in need of more maids. Edele shivered. All-powerful Para, is this what I get for being patient? 3 years ago, House of Count Canyon. Edele's mother shouted, Edele Canyon. Stop being so stubborn. Do you think you can really defy your father? Edele hesitated, saying, But mother, the Duke is even older than father, so how could I marry? Her mother sighed. No, there isn't a better suitor out there. He's had a lover for a very long time now, and his children are all grown up. He wouldn't try to sleep with you to have more children. Besides, when he dies, you will be left with all of his assets. Edele said, You don't even know when he will die. I would probably be at least 30 by then. Her mother asked, You really don't get it, do you? When you become the Duchess, even your father will bow down before you. What is it you don't like about this arrangement? Becoming the Duchess of one of the 4 most prominent families. Edele pleaded, Please, father. This isn't what I want. Please reconsider. Has been a destiny that had been decided for me long ago. Her father shouted, How dare you? If anything, you should be more actively involved in this family's endeavors. Do you have any idea what kind of humiliation I had to endure so you could marry the Duke? I of all people am doing all this for you, you worthless girl. Or have you forgotten why I raised you? Edele thought to herself, I can finally be free from my father. I can leave the House of Count Canyon. That was the only thought in my mind as I endured everything. I was relieved the Duke was too busy with his lover to lay a finger on me. So I was patient. Despite all the jeering from the people of the Lancaster family, I persisted. I kept dozens and dozens of account books while managing hundreds of staff. And I kept my patience. I entertained guests who visited day after day and hosted endless parties, and I held firm. I didn't slip up once. I kept up the act with a smile on my lips, all for the moment I would finally be free. However, perhaps such efforts were all for nothing. A man came running to Edele, shouting, You must run, my lady. Edele asked, surprised, What do you? But he interrupted, The Emperor's army is storming this place. Then she thought, up until that moment, I had no idea. I was the only one kept in the dark about Duke Lancaster's plans to declare independence. The plot he hatched without me failed. And I realized something while running down the empty corridors. She dashed frantically. I don't see anything. Where did all the staff go? I was the lord that would keep the Emperor's army at bay. The kind of life I longed for was one filled with the warmth of others and supportive validation. But even though I was in charge of all those account books and staff, only one butler bothered to warn me. It turns out I never truly held any part of this large estate in my hands. I became the perfect lady my father always wanted me to be. My life that was praised was nothing but an empty shell. Perhaps all the pain I endured were signs from God telling me to run. Now in prison, someone said, Now stay quiet. Edele thought, Who knew something worse than death awaited me? They call me the spoils of war, but in reality, I am nothing more than a slave. They just call me that because slavery has long been abolished. Duke Lancaster's eldest daughter, Lauren Lancaster, already in prison, shouted angrily, Are you still acting all high and mighty even now? Well, aren't you the incredible and perfect lady? Duke Lancaster's second daughter, Daria Lancaster, shouted, "She's always been like that from the moment she got married. Her own family sold her off, but she's always acting like she's a real duchess." Count Canyon ratted on everything. "I'd bet she helped her father, too. We made you the duchess, you traitor. You ungrateful wench." Edele thought, it's not the first time they've expressed their disapproval of me, but they've never been so crude before. They're worn out and have completely given up. Edele gently said, "Why don't you get some sleep, Lauren? You too, Daria." She thought, I don't want to waste my energy on a meaningless exchange of vicious words. Sooner or later, there will come a time when the guards aren't watching closely. When that time comes, I need to have enough energy to kill myself. I would rather die than become someone's plaything. All the Lancaster men have died, and the House of Canyon was able to avert annihilation by giving up on me. Count Krissus said he would use me as his maid, but a young female prisoner of war will hardly be treated like a human being. Even now, the only reason I'm in a tolerable cell despite being a serious criminal charged with high treason is because I am a gift that the Emperor is giving away. It feels like my whole body is screaming in pain. My head aches too. I should sleep for now. I'm sure I'll think of something when I wake up. I have to figure out a way to kill myself. The next morning, sunlight fell on Edele's face. She blinked and thought, I guess old habits really do die hard. I was completely exhausted, yet I woke up at this hour. Today, I will be handed off to Count Krissus. No matter what it takes, I have to find an opportunity to die. That means this is the last sunrise I'll ever get to see in this life. It almost seems like this glimmer of sunlight shining through the window of my small cell is bidding me goodbye. The sky is unbelievably beautiful. The final meal they served was relatively lavish for a criminal. Keeping in mind that this is my last meal, I took each bite with a grain of gratitude. A voice called out, "Lauren Lancaster. Daria Lancaster. Come on out. Edele Lancaster, come out." Edele thought, I pray that nothing atrocious happens to those poor girls. Now there is only one thing I must do, to remain elegant until the moment I die. The soldiers brought them to the carriage. She looked at it and thought, let's jump off the carriage. If the servant doesn't keep too close an eye on me, I might succeed. If his estate is in the neighborhood where other noble estates are located, there'll be many carriages passing by. If I'm lucky, I could die on impact. Hopefully, the servant who is taking me is inept. But there was Laslo waiting for her by the carriage. Edele rode on the carriage in front of Count Laslo, thinking, I didn't think he would come to get me himself. He probably came so he could personally keep an eye on me. What if he tries to talk to me? He probably doesn't like me. After all, he was the commander of the Emperor's army. How could he look favorably upon me, the wife of a traitor? Laslo pulled out his red jacket to watch, and Edele panicked, saying, Why are you? He replied, then stopped shivering. She thought, oh, I guess my hands were trembling. That's why he gave me his cloak. If I throw this cloak toward him, would that buy me enough time to jump off of this carriage? Yes, once I jump off, I'll be crushed to death by the carriage's wheels. I can do it. I can hear a distant carriage approaching. I'll count to 3 and then I'll open the door to jump off. 1, 2. Laslo said, It'd be better you didn't do that. She thought, he knows. That's why he put me in the same carriage as him. This man will definitely not leave me alone. The carriage stopped at its destination. Laslo stepped out, saying, Get off. She looked outside and thought, so this is it. The hell that I will be living in. While she was getting off, her ankle moved and she slipped, but then she felt a soft touch. Why doesn't it hurt? She was startled. Laslo was holding her in his arms. She thought, I always remember what a noble lady mustn't do. Keep in mind that acting like you're dizzy to fall into the arms of a man is a cheap and vulgar way to win over his heart. She blushed and said, I'm sorry, but inside, she thought, I hope he doesn't misunderstand me. Laslo released her and turned toward the castle, saying, Follow me. He stepped inside and said, Head housekeeper. I take it nothing happened at the estate while I was away? Edele thought, Head housekeeper? A maid rushed hurriedly, saying, Welcome back, my lord. Ha ha, nothing out of the ordinary. Your housekeeper Marcia is taking good care of the estate, so please do not worry. Edele thought, why isn't there a butler answering him? Laslo asked, did you say you were short on maids? Here's a new maid. Use her as you see fit. First, give her a bath, feed her, and give her a room to sleep in. Marcia was surprised. What? Laslo continued, you can let her use any of the rooms that we aren't already using. Put her to work starting tomorrow. Edele thought, he didn't ask her to send me over to his room. He's really using me as a maid? Marcia said, huh. As short and to the point as ever. Another maid dashed in, saying, Mrs. Bohen, have you heard? Marcia asked, what is it, Mina? She replied, I just heard it from the night outside. That's Duchess Lancaster, who was captured as a prisoner of war. Marcia's eyes widened and she smirked. Is that so? I can't believe I get to order around a duchess. Mina, do as Lord Krissus ordered. Show her to the room at the end of the corridor. Mina replied, yes, ma'am. I'm gonna go mull over what to do with Miss Lady over there. Edele entered her room and thought, they're kinder than I'd expected. I got a change of clothes, and they even brought my food to my room. So I guess people live in rooms this small. It feels as though everything about this situation is telling me, you're not a noble anymore. I'm so cold. I guess they don't let the staff use hot water in this house. From now on, I'll probably have to bathe in cold water even during the winter. How odd. It's not like they would have financial problems. But this house is so shabby considering it belongs to a count. No, let's not think about this anymore. Right now, I have to look at the reality in front of me. I'm more fascinated by the fact that I feel hungry after all that I've been through. She picked a piece of fruit and tasted it. It's delicious. I thought I would never take another bite of fruit ever again. I was going to give up on my life, but it's not like I thought death was my only option. I just didn't want to live as some plaything, to satisfy filthy desires just because I am a spoil of war. I'm alive. She pressed her heart and hoped, will I be able to taste fruit again tomorrow? Perhaps Count Krissus won't try to lay with me tomorrow either. I want to taste the sweet nectar of fruit again, and live quietly, fending for myself. Perhaps I could lead a simple life as a maid here. I'll survive and carry on, waiting for the day I can live in peace. While at the Emperor's castle, a servant said, Sir Krissus came to pick up the prisoner himself this evening. DeMarcus smirked. I'm sure he did. How did he seem to you? Did he seem like a man who has been awarded the greatest spoil of war? The servant replied nervously, what? I wouldn't know, sir. Emperor DeMarcus said, everyone else might not know, but I do. I know the true nature of mercenary King Laslo. He signed a contract and joined the conquest at the last minute. He only agreed to the contract for the reward money, but he and his band of mercenaries achieved more than the knights could ever imagine. The emperor held Laslo's arm and asked, Laslo, tell me what you want, anything at all. He replied, the contract explicitly says how much I am owed. I do not need anything more. Despite having all that power, he has no interest in social authority or status, DeMarcus mused. And to top it all off, the audacity to be so brazen. Why, he would make the perfect dog. But in order to make him more than just a loyal hound, I need to lure him with something that would captivate him. Making him a count isn't enough. Yes, he thought. That encounter took place about 2 years ago, at the victory banquet. The nobles whispered, did that mercenary really become a count? Yes, it's true. Surely, he would want to be treated as our equal. Just thinking about it makes me queasy. What on earth is His Majesty thinking? Though Laslo was the principal driving force behind their victory, he was not welcomed there. In that moment, Laslo definitely had his eyes on Edele Lancaster. That is worth a gamble, DeMarcus thought. The die has been cast, so now it's time to watch. The emperor chuckled. Brace yourself. I've never lost a bet in gambling. At midnight, Count Laslo muttered to himself, darn that snake of an emperor. What's he after? I didn't expect the Duchess and Ida cross paths like this. This is going to give me a bad headache. He thought, The only reason I agreed to the emperor's offer and accepted the pesky noble title was so my little sister could be married off to a decent family. Maybe I shouldn't have been so greedy. Though I became nobility, since I am of common birth and a mercenary, they will hold me in contempt anyway. It's obvious how my sister will be treated in marriage negotiations. From what I've witnessed so far, marriage among nobles is vulgar. A father who sells off his daughter to an old man to make connections with one of the four most prominent families. An old duke who already has a lover and grown children, but is still getting remarried. And in these crude negotiations, the lady who was sold off at the highest price, Edele Lancaster. Even though she was being married off to the old coot as a second wife, she was still smiling. If she were really against the marriage, she would have run away. Did she exchange her youth for power because of her greed? But why couldn't I take my eyes off of her? It's not like I would ever have the chance to speak with her. Unlike me, who became nobility overnight, she was born into nobility and lived her whole life as a noble. I thought I would never get to see her again. But that very same Edele Lancaster is at my house as a maid. That devious emperor, he gave the ex-duchess to me as a warning to those who conspired against him, or something along those lines. If I had refused to take her, she would have been sold off, or she may have killed herself. Those were probably her two options. She was found in the duke's empty castle after everyone else had fled. Count Canyon cut all ties to his own daughter to keep his own neck. Both the count and the duke forsook her. She tried to kill herself because of that. Nobles and their pride. I don't get what it is she's trying to protect by throwing her life away. He picked up a lantern and blew on it. But if I keep her around, I might find a use for her. If she could break from her past, her life may not be the worst it could be. The next morning, housekeeper Marcia tossed clothes and shouted, "Look here, Duchess." "What is this?" "So I guess the house you're from used dirty old rags like these? Were you too afraid to get your soft hands dirty when you were washing these?" Edele nodded her head, saying, "I'll do better." Marcia shouted, "Of course you will." "Hey, Salia." Salia asked, "Yes?" Marcia said, "Are you sure you trained her properly? Don't go easy on this one and keep a close eye on her. This wench is a traitor from the house of Lancaster our master captured. Who knows what she might try to cook up?" A maid asked, "Are you certain there won't be any blowback even if you say things like that?" Marcia laughed. "What are you afraid of? You think the Duke will come back from the grave for his poor wife? There's nothing to worry about, so treat her however you'd like." Edele pressed her heart and thought, head housekeeper Madame Marcia Bohen, so this is what she meant yesterday. I can't believe I get to order around a duchess. I guess she wants to show everyone how great she is by overpowering a former duchess like myself. She's been like this from the moment she introduced me to the rest of the house staff. Does she want me to break into tears? This is all very unnecessary. Because there's probably no one else out there who's happier about the demise of the House of Lancaster. But more importantly, Salia pressed her head, saying, "She's finally gone. I can't believe she has the nerve to speak of the dead like that." Another maid, Layla, replied, "Bohen being rude like this isn't anything surprising. We're already busy as it is, so I don't get why she comes to give us a hard time." Salia is the maid in charge of the laundry room. Madame Bohen specifically picked her to train me, a former duchess, putting her in an uncomfortable position. If we get picked on again because I didn't do the laundry properly, it would make everyone else's life harder, so let's finish what's in front of me right now. I don't care about being ridiculed. The problem is, I'm not sure I have the stamina to withstand all this work. All of this is possible because I'm alive, so let's just be grateful. Edele's father, Dustin Canyon, shouted in anger, "Edele, that useless girl. She's a worthless, useless excuse for a daughter." He hit the teacup against the flower pot and broke it. A man came in, his name was William, saying to Edele's father, "Father, what do we do now? Edele has become that mercenary's maid." He interrupted him, shouting, "William, don't mention that worthless girl anymore. The ingrate who doesn't even have the decency to take her own life before she is humiliated. After all I went through to keep this house intact." He recalled his past, saying, "Please believe me, Your Highness. Duke Lancaster blackmailed me into helping him commit treason. He took my daughter Edele against my will and kept her hostage, so as a father, how could I refuse him? Emperor DeMarcus replied, I see. If you insist that the House of Canyon is innocent, then I'm sure you have nothing to say about what becomes of Duchess Edele Lancaster. Dustin chuckled in an evil tone. Why, of course, Your Highness. Once a daughter is married, she is no longer part of the family. She has nothing to do with us. I got on my knees and begged him for mercy, not to mention offering him the Duke's family secrets on top of half of all my assets. I survived despite the ridicule and humiliation I had to suffer through. DeMarcus of the Tiberine imperial family, he took the throne after his incompetent father and brought on a commoner to bolster the throne's power. He isn't afraid of sinister or malevolent ways so long as the ends justify the means. He's trying to make an example out of my house to keep the high nobles in line. He turned Edele, that incompetent fool, into that dirty mercenary's toy to tarnish the reputation of the Canyon House and to warn the other nobles. Dustin muttered, yes, that is exactly what he was after all along. He thought, he dares ridicule me like this? You think you can get away with manipulating me, the great Dustin? Then he said, William, Geoffrey, keep a low profile for the time being. Since the Emperor got himself a trusty hound, he has nothing to fear. William replied, yes, father. Dustin crushed the cup pieces under his foot, thinking, you just wait and see. I will build myself up again and make sure no one can ever look down on the House of Canyon, no matter what it takes. The next morning, Edele was walking with a bucket of clothes. A maid called out Edele. Wait for us. Edele turned and looked, saying Salia. And, Layla, Salia chuckled. You're on your way to hang the sheets to dry, right? It won't be easy to do on your own. Let's do it together since we're headed there too. Edele flapped the clothes with the other maids while thinking, it's already been 10 days since I came to this house. If someone were to ask me what I've done here, I could proudly tell them that although I am a mere spoil of war, I worked hard as a maid in the laundry room. Because of it, I've gotten rather good at doing the laundry. However, if I had to complain. Marcia shouted, hey, Duchess. Your laundry is a complete mess today too. Are you intentionally ignoring me, or are you just that dull? Edele thought. It would be Madame Bohen who keeps coming around to pick on me. Marcia said, speak up if you've got something to say. Edele asked gently, excuse me, Madame Bohen. Salia stepped in to protect her, saying to Marcia, considering that she only just began learning, she's doing quite well. I'm training her just fine, so why don't you return to your station and your own job? Marcia shouted, what I'm trying to say here is, but Salia interrupted her, I'm the one in charge of the laundry room. We're already swamped as it is, so please stop doing this. Being busy is one thing, but then why don't you show her how it's done? Here's a dirty rag, why don't you show her how to get it nice and clean? Marcia huffed as she left the room, saying, I may be leaving you now, but I'll be watching. Do your job properly. Edele asked, is it okay for you to say that, Salia? Salia replied, what's there not to be okay with? I didn't do this for you, so don't worry about it. If she keeps dropping by like that, it's a nuisance for us too. Edele thanked her, still. Thank you. Salia smiled faintly. Well, it's not like she's gonna try to get back at us, so don't worry. Our meals might get a little skimpy out of nowhere, but even that should go away in a couple of days, so there's nothing for you to worry about. She's just that kind of a person. Okay, we have a lot of work to do, so let's get back to it. Edele thought, the head housekeeper who is harassing me, the former duchess. Salia, who helps me as if she doesn't care that I'm the spoils of war. And the other maids who are suffering because of me. I haven't even had the chance to speak to them or ask what they think about all this. I hope I'm not causing them too much trouble. At night, Edele rubbed her hands on the bed, saying to herself, I wonder if they're all okay. Maybe they don't have the leisure to think about anyone else. There is just so much work that my hands are all blistered and chapped. I worry about the maids too, but Count Krissus hasn't asked for me in the last 10 days. It's almost as if he's forgotten all about me. I'm just relieved I could live as a maid. Would it anger the dead for me to say this? But I'm just happy and grateful to be free of the Lancasters. I'll do my best tomorrow too. I pray that today ends peacefully too. I pray that the night remains calm. I hope to take another bite of an apple tomorrow. As she closed her eyes to sleep, someone knocked. Edele's eyes widened. She jolted and thought, who could it be at this hour? It can't be, but what if Count Krissus changed his mind? Is he here to sleep with me? She stood up and asked, who is it? A lady said from the other side of the door, it's Daisy from the next room. Could I come in to talk to you? Edele thought, Daisy? I heard Daisy is the youngest maid in this house. Edele opened the door. Daisy smiled and said, I'm sorry to come by so late at night. Edele thought, I passed her a couple of times in the hallways, but we barely said hi before. She said, come on in. When Daisy entered the room, Edele asked, can I ask why you're here? Daisy blushed as she said, oh, it's nothing really. There's just something I want to give you. It's ointment and cream for when you're hurt. Edele was surprised. What? But why are you giving me these? Daisy replied, I heard you moaning in pain every night. The walls are terribly thin here, so you hear pretty much everything. You know, since I'm right next door. Edele apologized. I'm sorry, I had no idea. Daisy replied gently, it's fine with me. I can sleep through the noise. But I heard Madame Bohen is giving you a hard time. You probably haven't gotten used to your work yet, and if you're in pain all the time, that can't be easy. So I just wanted to give you these. Edele thought, in the world I lived in, doing something just because was unheard of. I can't believe such a young girl is so thoughtful and caring about those around her. I didn't know there could be eyes of such sincerity without even a shadow of deceit. Edele took the ointment from Daisy and thanked her. Thank you, Miss Daisy. Daisy stuttered. Did you call me miss? You can just call me Daisy. Edele replied, then you can just call me Edele too. Daisy blushed. I'm not sure I can do that. Then is it okay for me to call you sister? Edele smiled and nodded her head. Daisy asked, should I help you put the ointment and cream on your shoulder and back? Edele replied with a faint smile, I think I can handle it myself. Daisy chuckled, you won't be able to reach your back. We're both girls, so there's no need to be shy. Edele said then, thank you. She thought, it's a shame I don't have a diary. If I had one, I would have written that I made a new friend today. The next morning, breakfast was a little skimpy as Salia predicted. Salia said, I told you so. Edele looked and thought, at least there's still fruit. Maybe it's because of the medicine Daisy gave me. My back feels a little better. I used to be forced to fast regularly to maintain my figure. This is fine. I'm sure today will be fine too. Count Laslo was holding a letter and reading it. Dear Count Krissus, the loyal heart of a lion, he ordered, bring her to me. To the sitting room on the first floor. Now. A servant went to fetch her. As Edele walked, she thought, he called for me out of the blue. There will be other people there, so I'm sure nothing will happen, but I wonder what he wants from me. The servant said to Edele, go on in. She thought, I was sure today would be a good day too. She entered the room, saying, it's Edele. I heard you asked for me. Count Krissus said, take a seat. Looking at him, she thought, Count Laslo Krissus, I feel overwhelmed every time I see him. He asked, let me ask you something. Are you familiar with Dowager Marchioness Barbara Celestine? She was surprised. What? Barbara, she thought, wait a second. Why is he mentioning the Dowager Marchioness Celestine? Laslo asked, do you not know her? She thought, is it okay for him to know that she and I are acquainted? Edele replied, Dowager Marchioness Celestine. I do know her, but I've only had tea a few times with her. He said, then it must have been some tea. Why else would that rigid woman write to me, a bloodthirsty mercenary, begging for mercy? Edele shouted, a letter from the Marchioness Dowager? Laslo handed her the letter. She picked it up with trembling hands, thinking, I can't believe my dearest friend Barbara wrote me a letter. I couldn't help but write to you after hearing what happened. The entire Lancaster house kept her in the dark, so she doesn't know what happened behind closed doors. Please do not push Ms. Edele into an even greater dismay. So many people who used to know me as a duchess turned their backs on me, but I couldn't blame them. No, it made perfect sense. I was guilty of treason, of all things. So I assumed everyone had abandoned me, but she genuinely believes in my innocence and is worried for me. I thought if I just endured everything without any complaints, I could protect myself. But I experience kindness and warm generosity from those who barely even know me. And now a friend from my past comforts me so. I can feel my friend's sincere attempt to console me, but what will Count Krissus think of this? What if he mistakes Barbara to be an ally to the Duke of Lancaster who schemed against the Emperor? Edele said, Dowager Marchioness Celestine is a very sympathetic person. Our families are not affiliated in any way, and our friendship is nothing more than a private relationship. So I hope you do not misunderstand this letter. Laslo said gently, Are you afraid I might hound the old lady? I don't know why everyone assumes the worst of me. She stood up, saying, That's not it. That's not what I meant at all. I apologize if what I said offended you in any way. Laslo said to her, See? You're trembling like I'm about to cut someone's head off. He paused, then muttered, Head, I shouldn't have said that to you just now. She looked confused and thought, I've never seen him make a face like that. Is he sorry? To this woman, I am the man who captured and slaughtered the members of the Lancaster house. She's probably disgusted by me and might even think I'm some cruel and vicious monster. And what do I say to her? Hey, you're trembling like I'm about to cut someone's head off. I can't believe I said that. You insensitive fool. I just wanted to know why Dowager Marchioness Celestine is going to such lengths for her. He glanced at her. What is she thinking right now? Edele said, My lord, all you've done is follow His Majesty's orders and claim victory. It is an anomaly that I should even be alive. There is no reason you should feel uneasy talking about any of this. He was impressed, thinking, how could she remain so composed while saying such things? She may find it difficult to blame me right to my face, but I can't even see a faint shadow of resentment in her eyes. I guess I should say she is a true duchess. Flawless composure and careful choice of words, meticulously shaped through lessons. Her ability to repress her emotions. I may be a count by title, but I remain the same man I used to be. I see. Is what I'm feeling right now shame? Laslo said to her, Anyway, I want you to reply to this letter. She wouldn't believe it if I wrote back defending myself. Edele was surprised. Me? She beamed. What should I say? He answered, Whatever you'd like. Oh, I would like you to include this in your letter. Tell her I won't be treating you the way the public expects. Edele looked puzzled. The public's expectation? She said shamelessly, Oh, please don't call for me during the night and rough-handle me. Thank you. Laslo thought, What are the nobles saying about me now? I made it very clear I would use her as a maid. I have a little sister. How could they think I would do something so brutal? Those high and mighty nobles are the ones behaving like animals. How could they say such things when I haven't even held hands with a woman before? A small bird of a woman at that, too. That's it. She may appear strong, but she's so frail you almost feel sorry for her. She can't even stand to touch a lowly mercenary like me. Therefore, I shall never lay a finger on this woman. Edele thanked him with a diligent smile. My lord, thank you so much. Laslo thought to himself, Never. At night, Daisy shivered. It's cold. But it's not like we could skip showering because of it. Edele chuckled. It's too bad. Good work today. She thought, I guess they've never had hot water in this house before. Daisy knew exactly where to put the ointment to feel better despite being so young. I wonder how long she's been working here. I should be nicer to Daisy. They waved to each other, wishing good night and sweet dreams. Edele entered her room, looked at the papers, and was surprised. What's that? Count Krissus sent over paper for me to write the letter on. He meant what he said earlier. I'm sorry to ask, but could you lend me some paper and pen? I don't have any. Laslo had said, Don't worry about that. She rushed happily toward the table. What should I write about first? There's so much I want to tell her, but he'll probably read my letter before sending it out. I can't even write my beloved and esteemed Barbara like before. Dear Dowager Marchioness Celestine, Barbara, you were always concerned for me and took such good care of me. I don't know how I could thank you for remembering me and showing sympathy to a sinner like me. I still remember the first time I met you 7 years ago at Countess Roderick's tea party. Nobles murmured, Dowager Marchioness Celestine has arrived. I can't believe she's really here. Edele said, Is there something wrong with her coming here? Two ladies beside her whispered, Oh dear, House of Canyons. A woman near Edele grabbed her hand. Edele, this is Countess Roderick's tea party. The two ladies don't get along very well. You'll see, they're as different as night and day. Edele tilted her head. Then why would Countess Roderick invite her? The woman replied, obviously. A voice echoed, Dowager Marchioness Celestine Barbara M. Celestine has arrived. Edele looked and thought, that isn't the sound of her heels. She's limping on one leg. Does she have a prosthetic leg? The sound of her walking is echoing more loudly here than it would in other halls. Is this why she was invited here? I don't know what conflict the two ladies have between them, but using another person's disability like this is unacceptable. Edele rushed toward Barbara and greeted her. My goodness, my lady. What a coincidence. Do you remember me? You helped me when my carriage broke down in town. You left refusing to accept payment, so I was hoping to see you again. I had no idea you were Dowager Marchioness Celestine. Wow, did that really happen? Barbara said, Yes, it did. I haven't been to many social occasions, so I failed to recognize you at the time. Another woman nearby laughed. The Dowager Marchioness showed such generosity. How wonderful. Edele said gently, I appreciate you helping me back then. I hope this seems natural. I hope my over-the-top welcome is enough to cover up the uncomfortable noise and silence. Barbara whispered, Well, aren't you a nosy young lady? Edele smiled apologetically. I'm sorry if it offended you. Barbara replied softly, Not at all. Edele thought, back then, I was young. I was proud of myself for helping an elderly lady in trouble. Nobles murmured, Have you heard? Viscountess Oberon decided to divorce her husband. Isn't the House of Oberon on the verge of bankruptcy after being scammed? I heard the Viscountess has been working as an interpreter outside of the house. Don't tell me she's asking for a divorce since she's making money. How could she hurt her husband's authority like that by earning money outside? The lady beside Edele wondered, Oh my, after her husband was generous enough to withstand all that, she's still asking for a divorce. Perhaps she has taken a lover on the side. Edele thought to herself, I had no idea how easily the social scene can damage a person's reputation. The woman said again, She has been neglecting her duties at home and… Barbara interrupted, It would seem that you are much more conservative than when I was young. It would seem that you are much more conservative than when I was young. Why should she be criticized for becoming successful on her own merit? Her house was like a sinking ship, so she did everything she could to keep it afloat. She wanted to do better, so she worked hard. Edele was surprised. What's wrong with ambition like that? Does that mean it's okay to be ambitious? There's nothing wrong with living like that? The woman with red hair laughed and shouted, I think you speak too boldly. How can you compare what she does with a working man? Viscountess Oberon, who failed her duties as the lady of the house. Barbara interrupted her and sighed. She is a progressive woman who earns a living to make up for what her husband failed to provide. You should all be fighting for your rights, but here you are, dragging others through the mud. Others whispered, No wonder they say she devoured her own husband. Apparently, she would lecture her husband on his affairs since she was young. Another whispered, She must see herself in Viscountess Oberon. Don't mind her, Countess Roderick. We feel the same way you do. Then shall we move on to something else now? After the hectic tea party, Edele stood at the main gate and called out, Wait, Lady Celestine. Could you spare me some time? Barbara turned and asked, HM? What is it, Lady Canyon? Edele said to her, Earlier, I was wrong. I was out of line to feel sorry for you. I had no idea you were stronger than anyone in the room. I want to become as strong as you, Lady Celestine. Could I come visit you occasionally if you don't mind? Barbara smiled and said, That sounds wonderful. I would love for us to have such discussions. Since then, we spent a lot of time together and talked a lot. Before we knew it, we became each other's best friend. Sweet Barbara probably loved me more than anyone else in the world. Had I only taken what she told me closer to heart, perhaps things would be a lot different than now. Barbara once shouted at me, "Edele, don't ever get used to making sacrifices. Marrying the old Lord Lancaster. You must liberate yourself from the manipulative men who are trying to control you." Edele trembled and said, But if I don't do as my father tells me to, my only other option is death." Barbara asked harshly, "Why would you die? Please, Edele. Look at me. If you would just ask for help, I will help you with everything." That was my last encounter with Barbara. I'm sorry, Barbara. I only hoped that this letter would give you some peace of mind and ease your worries. On the other side, Marcia asked the maids, "Really? Count Canyon summoned Edele?" A maid replied, "Yes, Madame Bohen. But he summoned her to the drawing room during the day, and she just left right now. I guess it wasn't anything serious then." Marcia fumed. She is such a minx. She's not to be taken lightly. Just look at how Salia is taking her side. A maid giggled. Salia's sort of weird, though. The same goes for Layla and Daisy too. Birds of a feather, right? Marcia clenched her fist and said, "I'll have to make sure they know their place and keep their heads low. Those insolent brats who won't even pay their tributes. I'll make it crystal clear to them." A maid asked with a blush about that. Some of the staff have been complaining about having to shower with cold water. They even got suspicious that I wasn't showering with them. Marcia yelled, "What? You kept your mouth shut, right?" The maid chuckled, "Of course I did. I made up an excuse. Warm water is a privilege reserved for you and me. Why else would I be paying 100 linktons every month?" She thought, when I sell off some items from this house, it'll more than make up for my losses now. Marcia pointed at her, "You'd better watch your mouth. If Lady Linnea finds out about this, you know what I mean, right?" The maid smiled, "Of course. Besides, she's not interested in such things." Marcia thought happily, "Yes, of course things will be just fine. Lady Linnea trusts my every word, and Count Krissus is hardly home. This entire household might as well be in my pockets." Meanwhile, Edele handed a letter to a servant. "It's the letter his lord asked me to write. Please pass it along." He replied, "I will." At the laundry, Salia wiped her sweat and said, "Why is there no end to this darn laundry? She's making us do such unnecessary things." Layla said, "I guess Madame Bohen thought something didn't sit right again." "Where is she anyway?" Salia asked. "Well, it's obvious," Layla replied. Marcia was brushing the hair of Lady Linnea. The lady asked, "She's probably whispering weird things to Lady Linnea again. Is that true?" Marcia chuckled, "Yes, my lady. Have I ever told you something that wasn't true? Leave matters concerning high society and managing this house to me." Lady Linnea turned and said, "Okay. Please do as you told me. This estate must run perfectly, like any other house of nobility." Marcia replied, "Yes, my lady." Meanwhile, Daisy pounded her shoulders. "Ow, my shoulders. My arms almost fell off wiping and mopping today. There isn't an inch of my body that doesn't ache." Edele said gently, "You did a great job today, Daisy. Are we expecting guests? Why did we mop down the entire house out of the blue?" Daisy replied, "We don't get guests in this house. I guess the head housekeeper's just in a mood." Edele blinked and thought, actually, she's right. It's already been a month since I've been living here, but I've never once seen a guest. Count Krissus is a nobleman that belongs to the emperor's inner circle, and yet there are no visitors that come around the estate. Is it because of all the distasteful rumors about him? I also had a negative first impression of him. But considering how generous he has been with me, and his general attitude, he doesn't seem like a terrible man. The only reason I can live this ordinary life is— But Daisy interrupted her thoughts anyway. "Even if we don't have any guests, sometimes we do this sort of thing because of Lady Linnea." Edele jolted. "What?" Daisy glanced. "Lady Linnea, Count Krissus's younger sister. You've heard of her, right?" She offered a piece of bread to Edele. "Here, have some bread." Edele took it, saying, "Oh, I did hear that a lot of staff quit because of Lady Linnea." Daisy replied, "That's right. When Lady Linnea gets moody, it can be hard to bear. She's never had to work a day in her life, so I don't understand why she's so concerned with our work." Edele was surprised. "Is that so?" Daisy explained, "Since he was young, Count Krissus has always made a lot of money. That's why they've never skipped a meal before, even though they were commoners." That pretty much says everything. Honestly, if her brother worked so hard to become nobility, she could just live her life being forever grateful. I just don't understand why she's so immature. Edele thought, the Krissus siblings who became nobility overnight and a former duchess who became a maid overnight. It's like we're perfect opposites of each other. I learned how to wash laundry for the first time in this house. Before I learned how to do it, I didn't know anything about it. Since this is their first time in such a high place, maybe they don't really know how to lead their lives as nobles. Despite being in the emperor's inner circle, the estate of Count Krissus is rather eerie and shabby. The count, who is the head of this family, doesn't seem to care how the estate is being run. The only lady of the house is overly concerned with what the maids do. But what if they're not strange? What if they just don't know any better? With no butler to oversee the mansion, the head maid now wields all the power. Edele asked, "Daisy, did the other maids quit all because of Lady Krissus?" Daisy replied, "No. There have been plenty of people who quit because of Madame Bohen, but if they blame Lady Krissus, his lordship gives a good recommendation letter, so here is your letter of recommendation. Thank you for your services." Daisy blushed. He seems scary, but he's nice, isn't he? Edele thought, she's right. He does come off scary. Still, he's a good person, but there are some serious problems here. It wouldn't matter if this was a house on the verge of collapsing, but the House of Krissus is a new noble family. As long as the current emperor, Marcus Tuberan's power remains strong, his right-hand man, Count Laslo Krissus, must serve his duty to the fullest as well. That means Count Krissus must find himself a suitable ally as soon as possible. Maybe he could marry someone. Marriage is a great way to survive in high society. Did His Majesty not offer to introduce someone for him? Anyway, whoever he marries, I hope it's someone who pities me. The next day, Lady Linnea asked Edele, "So you're the famed Edele Lancaster?" Count Krissus and Lady Krissus both made their summons out of the blue. They didn't look much alike. Edele said gently, "I'm just Edele now, since the House of Lancaster is no." But Linnea interrupted her, "I know that much." Edele was confused. Is she mad at me? Now that I think about it, I don't even know how old Lady Krissus is. She might be in her late teens. She doesn't really feel very threatening. Linnea said, "So I heard Duke Lancaster was a 60-year-old geezer. How did you marry someone like that? Did you want to become a duchess that badly?" Edele replied, "Unfortunately, I didn't have a say in my marriage. I had to follow if my father ordered me." Linnea shouted, "That's awful. How could you call someone like that a father?" Edele thought silently, "You're right, my lady. I wonder how my father didn't know something even a young girl understands." Linnea said, "So then, how did you share a bedchamber with such an old man?" Edele replied, "He had a long-time concubine, so I never shared a bedchamber with him." Linnea was surprised. Concubine. Edele continued, "Since she was in charge of the Duke's rebellion funds, she is probably dead now too." Linnea was startled. Then what was your role in that house?" Edele thought, "There was once a time when I was just dying to prove my worth. I thought if I proved my competence, if I fulfilled all the duties of my role, I could be better. However," she said, "I only filled in the role of duchess to uphold the appearance of a perfect house, while taking care of some undesirable tasks here and there." She thought again, "Foolish Edele. What a foolish life I led." Linnea whispered, Why are you smiling like that? You're looking down on me too, aren't you?" Edele was surprised. "Pardon?" Linnea shouted, "You might as well be a slave now, so why are you smiling? You were thinking that I'm trying to act like the lady of the house when I'm just a lowly commoner girl, weren't you? Because you still think you're the perfect lady." Edele thought, "Why is she yelling at me all of a sudden?" She said, "Did I say something to upset you? If you would tell me what I did wrong, I could." But Linnea interrupted her. You're looking down on me. Kneel this instant. How dare you look down on your employer? Edele kneeled instantly, apologizing. I am sorry. I suppose I should stand since you did not order me to sit. Linnea trembled as she asked, What are you doing? Have you no pride? You were a duchess. What are you doing in front of a mere count's sister? She replied calmly, I am no longer a duchess. Pride and honor of being a noble. Oh, what worthless value it has. What is the true pride and honor one must hold on to? My world has already turned upside down. Edele said, You are my employer, and my knees aren't that expensive. Linnea murmured, How dare you? How dare you talk back to me? Do you think I don't know what you nobles think? You mock and ridicule people after inviting them. You liars. Do you even know who you owe your lives to? My brother trained those mercenaries who ran like wild dogs and won the war for you. So then why? Edele thought, just as I thought. Lady Linnea was seeing the other nobles through me. Linnea shouted, Get out of my room, now. I don't want to see you. She's standing at the center of the high society I left behind. She could have remained free and lovely. Edele murmured, Somehow, she reminds me of you. Actually, her name is similar too. I don't want any more of this, Edele. She recalled a moment when her sister said, I can't take it anymore. Edele said to her, Everything will be better once you're married. If you just hang on a little more. Her sister shouted and slapped her hand. No, Edele, you can stand this because you and I are different. I've already endured as much as I possibly could. My life isn't worth living anymore. My little sister who is no longer with me. Lynn Canyon. There's not much to the history of the Canyon House. Edele's great-grandfather, a gambling addict, won a parcel of land that had a sapphire mine. After becoming wealthy overnight, he offered a significant amount of gold to the emperor. The gold earned him the title of count from the royal family, who were dealing with serious financial problems. Born from such circumstances, the House of Canyon were nouveau riche nobles who had neither dignity nor prestige. Dustin, Edele's father, said to his daughter, Lynn Canyon, Have you memorized the 4 most prestigious families now? She replied, Yes, father. The House of Duke Lancaster, the House of Duke Barrington, Dustin shouted, Wrong, you foolish girl. Lynn Canyon, 10 years old, lowered her head. Dustin then said, Edele. Name the 4 houses. Edele Canyon, 12 years old, replied, Yes, father. The other 3 are the House of Duke Barrington, the House of Marquis Tolaine, and the House of Marquis Winblair. Dustin nodded. Yes, that's correct. Those 4 houses hold power and authority that even the royal family cannot take lightly. So do not ever forget that you will have to marry into one of those families, so no one could ever look down on the Canyons. Do you understand? She replied, Yes, father. Later, Lynn said to Edele, Hey, Edele. Will I become more like you when I'm 12 years old? I feel like such a fool, Edele exclaimed. What are you talking about, Lynn? You're not a fool, Lynn said softly, but that's what father said earlier. Edele explained, Well, you know how harsh he can be with his words. He only meant to encourage you to do better. It doesn't mean he actually thinks you're a fool, Lynn asked. You think so? Edele grabbed Lynn's hand and said, Lynn, should we go downstairs and have some cookies instead? I'll give you some of mine, too. Lynn blushed and said, Edele. Edele chuckled. When we're finished with the cookies, let's study together. I'll help you out, so don't worry. Lynn smiled, saying, Yeah, sure. With you, I'm okay with anything. The cook came and said, Return to your room. Lady Lynn is not allowed any snacks starting today. Lady Lynn, you did terribly on your test yesterday. Count Canyon has ordered us not to give you any snacks until you have earned your right to them. Edele asked, How could he? The cook asked, Lady Lynn, have you even completed your homework for today? Lynn hesitated and replied, No. Then she dashed toward her room, saying, Then you enjoy your snack, Edele. I'll be in my room doing homework, Edele shouted. Lynn. Edele thought, Father has always been very strict, but he's become even worse lately. Why is he so cruel only to us? And why is there nothing I can do? My heart aches and I'm so angry. I wish I could grow up sooner for Lin's sake. Will everything really be better once we're married? If I work harder to become a perfect lady, to become a more graceful bride, to become slim and thin with a beautiful smile, and become the most desirable lady in all the land, and make father as powerful as he wishes to be. One day, Dustin roared, "Lin Canyon, you're already 16. When are you going to get your act together? Do you think you'll be able to attract any men, let alone a man from the 4 great houses? You're just a big waste of my money. Your sister has already made her debut in society, making connections. When are you going to be of any use to me? Why can't you become someone I wouldn't be ashamed to let out of this house?" Edele thought, if I become the person father wants me to be, would Lin like it if I gift this to her? Will I become free someday? In her room, Lin was crying, throwing things around and praying, "Edele, I just can't do this anymore. I don't think I could become a noble lady like you. The only thing I want is to fly away like that bird." Then Dustin said coldly, "Lin is dead." Everyone froze. Edele's eyes widened at his words, her heart pounding. She asked, "What? Wait, what do you mean?" Dustin replied, "She's dead. Do I have to repeat myself? It's like you've become a fool like Lin. She accidentally fell from the 3rd-floor balcony while looking out. That's all there is to it, so make sure word doesn't get out." Edele was stunned. I can't believe she did this during such a busy time. Sitting on the floor of her room, she whispered, "Lin, why did Lin? I can't take it anymore. I have feelings, thoughts, and a mouth through which to express these things. How much longer do I have to put up with this? I've already put up with as much as I possibly could. My life isn't worth living anymore." The hope that I grew after meeting Barbara withered into despair again. And just as father had wanted, I married into the House of Lancaster. You know, Lin, I always thought of escaping like you did. But with you by my side, I thought that was enough for me to hold on. Even though no one could bear the weight of a life they never asked for. So if Lady Linnea is in pain, I wish I could at least teach her how to endure it, but am I in a position to do something like that right now? My heart feels heavy, and I'm so mad at how helpless I am. Laslo thought, now even the head housekeeper doesn't bother to greet me. Although my sole purpose of accepting this estate was to have rendezvous with my soldiers, this is not how an actual count's estate would be like. Linnea said, "Laslo, you're home. Welcome back. Did you have a good day?" Laslo replied, "Yeah." Linnea asked, "What did you do at the palace today?" Laslo replied, "Same thing I always do." "Why do you ask?" Linnea replied, "Reason, Anna." Laslo asked, "Why did you follow me into my room? You have something to say?" Linnea said, "Oh, I mean, it's nothing big really. I was invited to attend this party. Viscountess Emerson is hosting it. Do you know her?" Laslo replied, "I don't." She said, "Oh, really? Okay, I see." Laslo said, "You don't have to go if you don't want to." Linnea shouted, "And no. If I don't go to these social events, I wouldn't have a chance to wear all the beautiful gowns I have. But it's just, I don't know what to say at parties. So I was wondering, Laslo, if it's all right with you, could you find me a decent tutor?" Laslo said, "Linnea Krissus. If I find you someone decent, will you learn without throwing a tantrum this time?" Linnea said, "When did I ever throw a tantrum?" Laslo said, "Answer me, Linnea. I've hired multiple tutors for you already. Remember why they all quit in less than 2 weeks?" Linnea shouted, "But that's..." Laslo said, "It's okay, Lady Linnea. I understand that you may not know things as a commoner, but I am a little worried if you'll ever be able to understand the material at all." Linnea thought, they were the ones who ridiculed me first. They always pretend to be refined and sophisticated, but what am I supposed to do when they treat me like a fool right to my face? I know it's ridiculous to even think about it at a social party. Linnea shouted, "How dare you look down on your employer?" Then she thought, but at least I can yell as much as I want in this estate. It's not my fault. They just had such pampered lives. It doesn't make sense for them to quit like that only because their employer said something. Laslo said, "Linnea." Linnea said, "Oh, that reminds me. That duchess wasn't what I expected, though." Laslo asked, "What?" Linnea said, She's held a higher position than any of the tutors that ever came here, but she had no pride at all. I told her to kneel in front of me, and she actually did. I called her in to see her for myself, but she was acting all high and what? You scared me. Why would you yell like that? Laslo shouted. Do you not understand how ashamed you should be for what you did? How could you force someone who works for you to kneel? Using your authority to trample on the weak, that's exactly what the nobles we hate so much do. Linnea replied, I know that, but why can't I? I want to look down on those nobles who despise me. Is that so bad? Laslo said, but you didn't treat a noble with contempt. You only ridiculed a maid. You could never do that to an actual noble. Don't you think that makes you a coward? She said, Laslo, you don't even know what you're talking about. Linnea thought, I never told you about all the mockery and ridicule I had to endure, nor how difficult it has been and how resentful I've felt, because it would only upset you. Aren't you supposed to help me? Then she shouted, fine. Aren't you just a know-it-all? You don't care what happens to me at all, do you? She thought, aren't you just a know-it-all? Laslo said, wait, Linnea. She said, well, then, whatever. Laslo sighed, darn it. I don't know what to do in a situation like this either. What am I doing right now? This is all because that snake DeMarcus made me a count. Count DeMarcus had said, you should accept the title even if you don't want to, Laslo. You have to become a symbol for the mercenaries. Laslo had asked, a symbol. The Count replied, if the mercenaries were to actively participate in society instead of giving up on their lives, they need a symbol like you to look up to. So become the new authority. Authority will protect Calliope, your mercenary guild, along with anything else that you value. I'm offering such a high title to you for a reason. Someday, you too will accept your fate, just like how I had no choice but to accept mine. The Count thought, what is fate going to do when I don't even know how to handle my own little sister? Laslo thought the same. What is fate going to do when I don't even know how to handle my own little sister? Laslo then said, should I get another recommendation for a tutor from the household division? I'd better tell Linnea that this is the absolute last time. She'll probably feel better about going to the party if I buy her an expensive necklace. And I wonder if edele is okay. He thought, she must have felt humiliated after having kneeled before Linnea. Even if she's no longer one, she was a duchess after all. And what if she's crying alone? Maybe I should apologize on Linnea's behalf. No, but that would make Linnea look bad. All right, let's just ignore it. Laslo, you are thinking way too much about this woman. Laslo opened the door and said, the cold air is making me feel much better. Okay, let's just drop it. Bad rumors are bound to follow if I visit her at such a late time, darn it. Somewhere else, a man said, well, now. Ever since the victory banquet, the mood among socialites has been quite tense. Another man said, it's because the house of Duke Lancaster was brought down so easily. We all assumed that the Lancasters would have a stronger foundation than the imperial house. I thought they would be able to survive at least until the end of the year. This is all because of him. Tolaine said, Laslo Krissus. That filthy mutt. Angelos said, who would have guessed that a member of the imperial family would swallow his pride and join hands with a lowly mercenary? Because they're both the same sort of brutes. DeMarcus Tuberine fought in the battlefield, too. He's only royalty by title. What would he know of elegance or refinement? Tolaine said, which is exactly why we need a new emperor. As long as DeMarcus is emperor, us nobles will only continue to decline. Angelos said, but it's too early for us to step in. I would much rather borrow the hands of the lesser nobles. Our 4 houses, no, 3 houses getting directly involved could come back to haunt us. Then what about that nouveau riche family? Barrington said, oh, the house of Count Canyon. As it happens, the Count's daughter was given away to that lowly mercenary, Krissus. Windblair said he's a real piece of work. First, he sold off his daughter to Lancaster, hoping to forge a tie with the Duke, and now he sold her off to the Emperor to protect his house. I don't know if such a trivial man can manage to do something worthwhile, but I'm sure he'll prove to be useful one way or another. What good is a daughter if not to marry off? Now that Lynn is dead, you're the only daughter, so why are you acting out? Marriage must succeed. Mark my words, edele Canyon. Edele Lancaster said, "Oh, it was only a dream. I still wonder sometimes, was being wealthy not good enough to satisfy father and the House of Canyon?" Edele said if he wanted to become an honorable noble, he could have made donations to the orphanage or the civilian hospital instead of marrying me off to one of the four most prestigious families. But it's all useless now. Let's get ready and go to work. The morning sun is shining gloriously. It's time to start my day again. Edele and Celia were murmuring, "So, isn't going to be easy." "I don't care. Figure out a way. Keep in mind what happens when you don't meet the deadline." Yes, Edele thinks they work in different stations. What could they be talking about? Actually, there could be work that I don't know about. Edele said the estate feels emptier than usual for some reason. Celia said it's because Madame Bohen isn't here. Lady Linnea went out today, and she went along too. Edele thinks isn't it a maid's job to attend to the lady when she goes out? Celia said Madame Bohen's only going to make Lady Linnea buy useless things again. It's not my money, but it still feels so wasteful. HM? Edele said looks like no one has come yet. Is everyone taking their time today because Madame Bohen's not here? Celia said, "Do you want to see for yourself?" Edele said, "What?" A girl said it's already been nearly 2 months since you joined the house, right? Then it's about time you got to take a look around the estate. Why don't you go pick up the laundry today? We'll wash all the laundry you couldn't finish yesterday. Edele said, but there's a lot of it, and they were Madame Bohen's orders. Celia said it's okay, she won't be barging in on us today. Edele replied still, "You went through quite a lot of trouble talking to Lady Linnea yesterday." Oh, Edele said no, it was fine. Layla said well, that's good to hear. Anyway, just take your time on the way back. Celia said there's no rush, so don't worry. Edele replied then. Layla and Celia said let's get these done and over with. We've got it. Celia said you're so kind, Celia. Layla said why? It would have been so hard for Edele to wash all these by herself. Celia said you were worried about her too, Layla. She's rather frail. Layla said Edele of all people needs to know the ins and outs of this estate. All the other maids are free to simply quit and walk out, but Edele, as a war trophy, may never be able to. This is the first time I've left the laundry room during the busiest time of the day. Layla and Celia are both so kind. They gave me some time off on purpose so I could take a break. But I should still hurry back and help those two out. Edele thinks now that I've got a new task. I feel like I'm getting recognized for my hard work. It's that maid from before and Madame Bohen's acquaintances. Edele thinks why isn't she in her designated area but taking a break here instead? Everyone else seemed busy. Where are all the maids stationed here? She was giving orders to another maid about something earlier. I knew there was an inner circle of maids centered around Madame Bohen. But that doesn't mean she's allowed to slack off on her work and push it onto others. What's even worse is she passed on her work to younger maids. I wonder if Count Krissus knows about all this. Then again, what will I be able to do about the issues around how this place is managed? Edele said if, then, Commander. Wouldn't this only benefit the yellow fox? The crimson rat is brimming with venom, which means they'll be much more cautious. However, Edele thinks it's Count Krissus. Let's leave before they catch me here. Landry said, who's there? I've told the kitchen maid to let no one in here. How dare you sneak in here like a little rat? Man said, who are you? What were you doing here? The man said, what were you doing here? Edele replied, I'm a maid from the laundry room. Edele bowed and said, I was just picking up his lordship's laundry. If my presence has interrupted you, then I can come back at a later time. Laslo said, there's no need for that. You can go now. The man said, wait, Commander, I've never seen this maid before. Have you verified her identity? Laslo said, yes, almost to an excessive degree. Edele said, then I'll be on my way, my lord. The man said, what's that supposed to mean? But I feel like I've seen her somewhere before. Gasp. Now I remember. That woman, is she the former Duchess of Lancaster? You really brought her in as your maid? What happened while I was away? I thought it was just a rumor. More importantly, what if she overheard our conversation? Laslo said, it's none of your business. And if she figured out what we were talking about just by briefly eavesdropping, we should invite her to join our guild. She seems suspicious. A woman who used to be the Duchess is working in the laundry room? She probably has never even gotten her hands wet before, Laslo said, you fool. Did you not see the condition of her hands? The man said, why would I have seen her hands? Those were the rough hands of a hard-working woman. Don't be so prejudiced, Laslo said. Besides, Edele's never even gotten a discreet message from Count Canyon. The man said, what? Laslo thought. Even Dowager Marchioness wrote to her. How could they even call themselves family? The man said, that probably means Edele. Did you just call her by her name? Laslo said, let's get back to what we were discussing earlier. Keep a close eye on the crimson rat. If the yellow fox makes a move, they'll surely react. The man said, okay then, I'll trust your intuition. The man thought, but sir, I have a pretty good intuition about certain things too. Laslo said, then I'll be heading to the palace to work. The man said, hold on, Commander. Sir? Although the Count doesn't seem to suspect me of anything, it does put me in a tricky situation. I'm not in a position to speak up, but even if I did get a chance to speak, seems like the Count's people won't believe me. Edele thought, for now, I should do what I can. Hey, Sir Milton, the master said, are you just finishing up your training? Edmund said, good afternoon, sir. Did you train to match the household division again? You don't need to overdo yourself. You already have a lot of responsibilities as it is. Second in command of the Royal Chivalry, Edmund Milton said, I'm not necessarily trying to match our drills to the household division, sir. Although the House of Duke Lancaster's uprising has been suppressed, we never know who else might attempt to challenge the Emperor. I just thought we should always be prepared. The servant said, that was a model answer, sir. What a shame. If it hadn't been for Count Krissus, you wouldn't be just second in command of the Royal Chivalry, but the commander of the household division by now, Edmund said. Nonsense. There is a suitable position for everyone. I'm more than honored to be the second in command of the Royal Chivalry, the servant said. Seriously, you are just too nice, sir. There are two armed forces in service to the imperial household, Laslo said. One is the household division that protects the emperor in close quarters, Edmund said. The other is the Royal Chivalry, which protects the palace and fights in war, the master said. Well, the public does consider the household division as the higher order since they guard and protect His Majesty very closely, Grand Master of the Royal Chivalry, the master said. But that doesn't mean we're competing with them. There's no need for you to become like that workaholic, Edmund said. I'm just doing the best I can to fulfill my duties. The servant said, that's right. Rapport with the knights is important, too. Considering that, you are by far the best, Edmund thought. Every move His Majesty makes carries significance, because that's how thorough he is. So I'm sure he has his reasons for putting that mercenary, Krissus, in an important position. But still, it is a bit much. I can tell by these reactions among the knights in the chivalry too. I don't like it. Laslo said, who's out there? The servant stammered. How did he know? Hello, sir. We're from the chivalry. We are here to see you, Commander. Laslo said, come in. The servants said, Terry Bogarden, Angelo Vallon, and Joseph Oz of the Royal Chivalry, sir. Laslo said, I don't think I've ever seen you around before. One of them said, oh. We haven't exactly achieved anything significant, so it's only natural that you wouldn't recognize us. Laslo said, that's enough sweet talk. What do you want? The servant said, this may be, we know this is a very sudden request, but another said, either way, we realize that the Royal Chivalry and the Household Division are in cooperation with each other, sir, Laslo said. Get to the point. The servant shouted, please give us the honor of training with you at your estate, sir, Laslo said. That certainly is a random request. Oh, haha, this sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud. But we do understand that you are a busy man, so please feel free to decline. Then why are you here, asking me for a favor? The servant said, what? Well, Laslo said, you see, we want to become strong like you, sir. The servant said, but all we're doing at the palace are the same drills that everyone else does, which makes it easy for us to get lazy. So we came to the conclusion that we need to be trained by someone strong and capable of judging us objectively. And that's why we thought of you, Sir Krissus. Not only are you the youngest commander of the household division, you never let personal feelings get in the way of training. Laslo said, we also wanted to know how other corps train as well. I've heard from a household guard that your door is always open to anyone who is willing to improve themselves. Laslo thought, they're not entirely wrong. I've never pushed people away from approaching me. It was simply that the noble guards had no interest in seeking out a commander who had once been a mere mercenary. But they seem to be out of shape. Their posture is bad, and it doesn't look like they would improve all that much. I guess they've only recently come to their senses. I don't dislike those who wish to improve themselves. You have to become a symbol for the mercenaries, DeMarco said. Laslo, someday, you too will accept your fate, just like I had no choice but to accept mine. Laslo thought, so is this what he meant? I never expected the knights to tell me something like this. I'm not exactly thrilled things are going according to his plan, but, DeMarco said, the desire to train is commendable. Then does that mean, Laslo said, so let me ask you one question. Why is it that you wish to train at my estate, out of all places? The man said, oh. We can't exactly train at the palace training hall since the higher-ups wouldn't really approve. The man added, it would seem strange for us to train with you when the chivalry Grand Master is around, right? Another said, oh, that's right. And even if the Grand Master is fine with it, the other knights might not be. That makes sense. There's definitely an unspoken rivalry between the household division and the royal chivalry. I shouldn't do anything that might bother the royal chivalry's commanding officers. Then, Laslo said, okay. Come to my estate next Saturday at 3. The man said, thank you. We will definitely be there. Thank you, sir. Laslo said, then you may return to your stations. Teaching them a few basic skills should be fine, although I'm not sure how much they'll be able to improve. Such desperate desire to get stronger isn't easy to come by. All right, attention everyone. A maid said, we're going to have guests this weekend. Since it's the new year, I was thinking about redecorating the manor anyway. Make sure your areas are spotless. Maids whispered, really? Really? And laundry room. Take down the winter curtains, wash the spring curtains, and have them ready. What? There are over 150 curtains in this manor. They don't even dry that well because it's the winter. That's for you to figure out. I don't care if you need to dry them all night long. If we just start off with the first floor lobby and the drawing room where the guests will mainly be, enough. I said do all of them. A maid thought, this is bad. Doing laundry is one thing, but this house doesn't seem ready to greet guests. I wonder what suddenly got into Count Krissus. A few days later, Laslo said, I will be going somewhere else other than the palace today. The man replied, sir? Oh, all right. It's been a while since you've gone out. Where should I take you to, my lord? Residential area of the nobles, Grania Avenue. The man said, welcome, Lord Krissus, to the house of Marquis Celestine. The drawing room is this way. Celestine said, we meet at last, Count Krissus. Laslo said, thank you for inviting me, Marquis Celestine. And Dowager Marchioness Celestine. Celestine said, no need to call me by such a long title when there's a perfectly easy name I go by. Just call me Barbara. Barbara said, I know, but since you are the head of a house, I will call you Count Krissus. I think it would be best if we all drop the uncomfortable titles. Laslo said, actually, you are quite right. Laslo thought, no wonder she was able to keep her house together. She's not someone to be taken lightly. Shall we take a seat? Laslo thought, will it be possible to host guests like this at my place? A butler who welcomed me appropriately, a maid who serves me with respect without being too flashy, and the overall elegance. It's definitely impossible. She said, Count Krissus. Laslo said, Count Krissus. She said, edele. Barbara said, is she doing okay? She was born and raised as a noble lady. Living as a maid can't be easy. Laslo thought, this is no time for my mind to wander. There's a reason I accepted her invitation. She probably wanted to see me a month after edele wrote back because. The girl said, let me be blunt, Count Krissus. I still wanted to keep an eye on what His Majesty will do next, but my mother wanted to meet you. I'm sure you already know why. In high society, there are 3 realms of power: nobles who support strong imperial power, traditional nobles who wish to maintain their authority, and moderate nobles who belong to neither realm. In this moment, they are stepping out of their neutral status to meet with me. Now that the traditional noble house of Duke Lancaster has fallen, everyone will be watching the house of Marquis Celestine, representing the moderate nobles. Laslo said, "And is that all right with you, my lord?" The girl said, "Of course. I haven't changed my mind just because of what happened with Lady Edele. I wanted to take this opportunity to get to know you and His Majesty. I'm actually relieved. If she hadn't been placed in your estate, my mother would have already kidnapped her. That would have put us in a tough spot." Laslo said, "I guess I should be honored you decided to discuss the matter with me first." Barbara said, "Count Krissus, she doesn't like to worry people, so I bet things are tough even though she says she's fine. And of all places, she's been placed in the notoriously difficult laundry room." Barbara said, "I cannot sit idly by when she is innocent. If you are someone who cares about the weak, I would like to know what you plan to do with her." Laslo replied, "I plan to let her live in my manor as a maid until rumors of high society settle down." Lady Barbara said, "And after that?" "That's what I'm still struggling to decide." Laslo said, "So I was wondering, to what lengths are you willing to go for her?" Barbara said, "If necessary, anything and everything. Just let go of her, and I'll take care of the rest." She said, "Sounds to me you would really kidnap her if I don't." Laslo said, "I think you and I will get along quite well." Lady Barbara said, "They do say age is but a number when it comes to love, but you should give it up and find someone your own age." Laslo said, "Ha ha, what a shame. The house of Marquis Celestine isn't a bad place to send Edele to. Neither the house of Count Canyon nor the three prominent houses could easily get to the Celestines, and the Emperor would welcome them with open arms if the house of Marquis Celestine joins the nobles who support imperial power. Edele would probably live a much more comfortable and happier life here, too." Laslo thought, "Yes, I'm sure she would." Next day, Krissus' estate. Linnea said, "Say it again." Marcia said, "Yes, ma'am. It's a message from Sir Krissus. He said he will be a little late because His Majesty called for him. So when the guests arrive, he said to serve them tea and dessert first, and show them around the house." Linnea thought, how could this be? The knights that are coming today are Laslo's guests, but he's not here. I've never hosted a tea party on my own before. First guests to visit the Krissus estate, Laslo Krissus not attending. Now what? I tried to copy what I've seen before, but did I get it right? I thought Laslo could tell me what to do if he was here. What if I make a fool of myself again? Marcia smiled and said, "Ha ha ha, don't worry, my lady, this is perfectly fine." How could I possibly trust Marcia? Isn't there anyone that I could depend on in a situation like? Linnea said, "Mina. Go and fetch Edele Lancaster." Mina replied, "What? Hold on, my lady," Linnea shouted and said, "That's an order." She of all people would exactly know how to host a tea party. Edele replied, "You asked for me, my lady?" Linnea said, "Why yes, come on in." "You see, the reason I asked you here," Mina whispered, "my lady, you should just have her serve the guests and let her handle everything. That way, the guests will get to see how you're making a former duchess work as a maid. Won't the guests be impressed?" Linnea said, "That's right." Mina thought, how dare she ask for this girl when I'm right here? But since you're already here, I might as well make you work, Duchess. That also means I get to take a break. Linnea said, "Edele, working in the laundry room must have been tough. Today, I'll let you be my personal attendant." Edele bowed and said, "Thank you for being so generous, my lady." Linnea said, 3 knights of the royal chivalry will be arriving soon. Laslo is running late, so we must greet them. When we do, should I be at the doors to greet them? Edele said that's usually the job of a butler, but since there is no butler, what if Madame Bohen greets them at the door? Mina said, "Wait, what?" Edele said, "And show them to the drawing room?" Mina said, "Ahem. I guess you do know how to host guests." Linnea said, "Then should I wait at the drawing room?" Most knights do not hold any titles. Because you are standing in as the head of the house, I think it would be appropriate for you to come down after the guests have arrived. Why yeah, that's probably better. Then, once the guests arrive, bring out some tea and dessert at a proper time. Linnea thought yes, that sounded perfect. Edele said, "Yes, my lady. I'll go to the kitchen to check on the tea and dessert." Linnea thought excellent. She'll probably set everything up to look fancy, right? Problem solved. What a relief. Edele said, "I don't feel too well." But let's maintain composure until the guests leave. Linnea thought it's almost time for the guests to arrive. I can do this, right? No, I have to. I'm the mercenary king's little sister after all. The door knocked. Linnea said, "Come in." Edele said, "My lady, the guests have arrived." Linnea said, "They have? Then should I head downstairs now?" Edele said, "Before we do, if you don't mind, could I have your handkerchief for a moment?" Linnea said, Hold on." Edele said, "Where is the powder?" Linnea said, "Here." "Anne, this is the flower extract powder that's fashionable these days." Edele clenched the bottle in her hand and said, "Then please excuse me." Linnea thought, What's she doing? I already finished my makeup this morning, and it didn't look like there was anything to fix. Marcia already took good care of me since guests are arriving today." Edele said, "It is done." Linnea saw the mirror and said, "Oh, what is this? I look much more plain than before. Put on some more flower extract powder." Edele said, "I cannot. With all due respect, my lady, I must say that such a powder is not fitting for an unmarried young lady of a noble house." How is it unfitting? Would people make fun of me for it? It is enough for young ladies to show their natural skin as is. If you use cosmetics to make your cheeks appear more pink, Linnea thought some people may say that a lady of such young age is already trying to seduce men. No wonder people were looking at me so strangely. Linnea said, I use this every single day. Marcia told me this is a popular cosmetic in high society. Mina said, what do I do? What if there's an awful rumor going around about me? It's all right, my lady. All you have to do is to not wear it anymore. Edele said, right now, you have to host the guests and stand in as the head of the house. Linnea said, oh, all right. Guests, okay. Let's go, Edele. She went and said, I've never done anything like this before. What should I do? Edele said, don't worry. Nobles are bound to pay respect to the person with a higher title. Here, you hold the highest title, my lady. Linnea thought for some reason, although she's the duchess I treated so poorly, and she's not Marcia, who's always served me by my side all along. Edele said, for instance, you can just look down on them. Think to yourself, I'm the lady of this house, the house of Count Krissus. Even the head of this house entrusts me to host guests. Everything Edele is saying is reassuring. Are you ready? Lady Linnea Krissus is here.